these are newspapers, which we're going to review because it's still reasonably safe to say that they give a snapshot of what interests us. Can you all raise your hand if you regularly read a newspaper? I guess we're kind of inevitably over-indexing for that.
Physical newspaper?
Yeah, physical papers. All right, keep your hand up if you subscribe to a paper. So it gets dropped off by a person in a car or on a bike? A van. Does anyone subscribe to the Observer? Yeah, Jack. Yes, all right. Okay. Fascinating, and thank you all very much for turning up and providing us with a free focus group apart from anything else. We at the Observer run a twice-weekly podcast called The News Meeting, which is a competitive version of this, in which the guests are invited to pitch stories and the host has to rank them. I've warned our guest, who I shall introduce you to in a minute, that if the mood takes me, we could turn competitive, but the main aim this evening is for you all to pitch in, which is more like what we used to call a tortoise a thinking. So I am going to ask our guests to tell us what has attracted their attention in the papers, both serious and unserious, but at any point, please feel free to raise your hand or just blurt out anything that comes into your mind. I'm just as interested in knowing what you find interesting in today's papers, or for that matter, this week's papers, or this month's magazines, or the current issue of Private Eye, or I'm almost as interested in that as I am in what our guests are interested in. And they are Barney McIntyre, the Observer's business news editor, Sophie Wilkinson, a freelance journalist and general thinker and opinionator, whose work can be read all over Fleet Street, if I may use such an old-fashioned term. Yeah, it does, kind of. And the one and only Katie Riley, on my left, the Observer's data editor, representative of the disunited states?
I don't claim to represent them.
No. But you are safe here with indefinite leave to remain.
Nope.
No?
Not even close.
Okay. Anyone from the Home Office? No. All right, let's start. Barney, is there anything that's caught your attention on the guilty pleasure or less than fully serious front?
So I think where better to start than the Daily Star, and there is a good piece actually a little bit in here, which is kind of after my own heart, about boars in Scotland. So wild boars, not boring people.
Wild sheep, but wild pigs.
Animals, yeah. Wild boar numbers are set to soar across Britain, with thousands of the once hunted to extinction porkers on the loose. And I'm interested in this story because about 6 months ago, there was this case of so-called boar bombing, which was where a guerrilla rewilder, someone who kind of wants to see kind of boars back in Britain, decided to release a load of them in Dartmoor. And as I understand it, that's one of the kind of main places where it's big in Britain. And there was this big sort of debate over, are they good for the countryside, are they bad for the countryside? Obviously, if you're a dog walker, you have a certain opinion about kind of angry boars coming out of hedges at you. But for my part, I think it's quite fun to have.
I didn't even know there were wild boars in the UK at all?
Yeah, I think we had quite a big population of them, and then kind of they sort of were hunted to extinction, and then in the kind of 1970s, someone decided, I'm going to do a boar bombing and drop a few here and see what happens. But yeah, so. And
what does happen? I mean, just to explain the bombing bit again.
So a kind of activist will come along and sort of say, I'm going to release a load of boars into this bit of farmland potentially, right, or natural park usually, in the hope that you can rewild parts of the Britain. And boars obviously, they churn up the soil. They're regenerative in some respects. I just think it's quite a fun little story.
But that's rather spoilt mine, because mine is also about wild animals in Scotland.
Okay.
White-tailed fish eagles, do I mean no, white-tailed sea eagles picking up in whole Shetland ponies in the Outer Hebrides. Can anyone guess on the wingspan of an adult white-tailed sea eagle?
12 feet.
Well, not quite.
10 feet.
8 feet. But my question is, if you're a white...
Baby Shetland ponies are.
You what?
Baby Shetland ponies.
Yeah.
I saw that.
You saw that story in the Mail, I think. Oh, well, the Telegraph had it too. Yeah. But if you're a white-tailed sea eagle holding an entire Shetland pony or a baby one, what do you do? What do you do? Do you just take it off and eat it?
Share it with a wild boar.
Yeah. I guess.
Share it with your friends.
I didn't get far enough into the story. Did you see what happened to the ponies?
They don't know. There was 2 of them. The farmer's lost 2 of them.
Yeah.
And he assumes that the birds have taken them. He doesn't know where they've done them. They would have eaten them.
They would have eaten them.
They probably
What are the ponies
Bones
doing
and
in the
all.
sea? That's what I want to know.
You think they what?
What are the ponies doing in the sea? These sea
No. It's a terrific question.
horses.
If they had been picked up from the sea, but they haven't. From an actual island. Yeah, Crofter lamented the loss of, I think, 5 of them from 2. Okay, all right. Sophie.
I was going to go with a silly story from the Daily Star. I'll stick with that for a bit, which is Katie Price's song from 2017 has gone to number 1 in the charts, and this is very much as a result of Peter Andre is he's got the 2 older kids and they're now entering into reality TV, and Katie's got nothing to do with it. And look, I genuinely haven't ever heard the woman speak for more than 30 seconds, but everything I know of her just comes to me. And basically, there's now this big movement online, which is essentially girlies support Katie Price, and we're going to stream this record until she gets her money. She's doing Cameo as well to get a bit of money as well, and those are going viral, and I think, well, semi-viral, whatever that means these days. I feel like that phrase kind of lost its sheen around the pandemic, didn't it? Nobody wanted to hear that one again. But basically, yeah, she shot up to number 1 because there is this massive support of her and this kind of incredibly speculative suggestion that Peter Andre is actually not the nice guy that he's framed to be.
Okay.
And just as a nice illustrative point of my insider knowledge of how the media has famously, or historically, treated Peter Andre, which is when you work at Heat magazine, you get given the kind of the style guide. Page 1, point 1, never piss off Peter Andre's fans. Never. That's the big rule.
His fans.
His fans or him, never criticise him. That was the golden rule. I don't know why to this day.
But there wasn't a corollary which is never piss off Katie Price's fans, or
No, I don't think so. I think it was very much encouraged that you could be bad about, be nasty about Katie Price. But
So I've got 2 questions. The first is, how do the charts work nowadays?
They work primarily by streaming.
Right.
Streaming accounts for a lot of it, which does mean that some people could be listening to the song, listening to it with it muted from Spotify and from other popular streaming sites. That's really where the majority of listening comes from, and that means that the chart is really just not that representative of
Right.
what people are out and about listening to. But obviously all of our listening habits have become very, very fragmented, and in a wonderful way that means we can listen to all sorts of different things. We can listen to our guilty pleasures, we can listen to things privately. We don't have to wait until the next song comes up on Top of the Pops, but it does mean that there's no kind of unified understanding of what everyone's really listening to.
Can you sing any of the song?
I'm afraid my fee doesn't cover that.
Katie?
No, we did listen to it though downstairs for a while, and it's very 2017.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't a hit first time round. It did nothing in the charts.
It's like a little kind of tropical bloop, 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 bloop at the beginning, and then
And then she sings.
I think some words, but I don't remember.
Yeah, that's when I asked you to turn it off.
And even though it's all streaming now and no vinyl, is there an...
It's not no vinyl.
There's still vinyl.
There's still...
I just don't know whether the vinyl heads are quite up for the Katie Price.
There's a longer lag.
Yeah.
But it's an index of the streaming services, and then also I was actually looking at this data the other day for a completely unrelated reason, and because I had the same question. It's like an index of all the different streaming services, and then sort of like record sales, digital records, like digital sales and physical sales as well. But yeah.
And can I ask, it's a campaign supporting what exactly?
Just supporting the pricey, essentially.
Just
saying,
pricey.
girls support girls, we're here for you, we know what's going on. And there's lots of clips of their previous reality TV series. This is Katie and Peter Andre, where people are kind of cherry-picking moments in which he's quite mean to her, and they're suggesting that this is him having kind of the majority of access to their children is indicative of a wider campaign of nastiness on his behalf. I don't know what the truth is, but I think there's a real sense of justice being done by her getting to #1, and people continuing to kind of look for every, as people who are very online, look for every sort of fault in him to point out that he's the bad guy.
Last time I saw her in the papers, she had a lot of elastoplast on her face. She'd been back to a surgeon. Is this kind of sympathy for that in any way?
I think it's really hard to understand what's real about her life and what's not. And having worked on celebrity and tabloid journalism quite a bit, I still can't quite decipher, did she really go and get like the sick boob job? Did she really did she really get held up at gunpoint? Did this actually all happen? But then occasionally it does creep into the realms of absolute reality when she's in court because she's been speeding. She was speeding on Shooters Hill, which is an odd place to speed. But anyway, it's just hard to get the traction when you're going up. But anyway, that is when it becomes quite real when it comes to, court things and things that are very much in the public realm of sincerity. So,
It's grounded by her child, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean,
and she's got,
that's the thing that anchors it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way she is with Harvey is...
It's grounded by her.
Her oldest son, who she had with Dwight York, who basically, the Manchester United striker, who basically completely abandoned both of them and denied paternity, even though he quite obviously is Harvey's father. Harvey's got Prader-Willi syndrome, and he's also got autism. I think
he's got
Prader-Willi syndrome, which I think is almost like the opposite of a GLP-1. It tells you that you're hungry all the time.
Right.
And I think he spends quite a bit of time in residential care, but she does look after him quite a lot. And she has only ever been completely loving with him, and that's what the world has been shown of her dedication to him and her sticking by him and just being really sweet with him, really. And I think a lot of people can see her as a very kind and compassionate person through her relationship with him. And I think she's also meant to be really lovely to animals as well. So there's that.
Well, I don't know if you guys expected to be listening to a lot about Katie Price, but I've learned a lot in the last 5 minutes.
If you want to support her, the song is called "I Got You" with the letter U.
And now is the time to sing it if you do know. Anybody? No? Katie, guilty pleasures?
Before I give you my guilty pleasure, I really liked Barney's story, and it reminded me of, and I don't know if anybody here is going to get this reference, the 40 wild boars. You need a gun to shoot 40 to 60 wild boars. No, okay.
What's this?
Wasn't it after some sort of shooting in America?
Yeah, it was a guy trying to defend like gun rights, and he was like, well, what are you supposed to do if you have 40 to 60 wild boars come into your yard every morning? And anyway, okay. So mine is, I don't remember I think maybe it was the Times, but I'm a little bit obsessed with the concept and sort of greater universe of Benidorm.
Benidorm?
Yes. Apparently it has the most, and I would check this, I didn't check it. It has like the highest per capita skyscraper highest number, like skyscrapers per capita of any municipality in the world, which is wild.
And surely untrue. I mean, I've been there.
Manhattan, apparently Manhattan is their blueprint. You've been there?
Yeah, we went on an orchestra tour to the Costa Blanca, oddly, when I was about 16, and I played the flute solo.
Okay, well they started, I played flute too. They started building up Benidorm in something the 80s, so it may have been...
Cheap flights.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's plenty of high-rises there. I'm just
Before
surprised
that?
it's denser than Hong Kong, but...
I don't know, but they're adding another 230 meter, like they've planned, like there's new planning permission and a deal going ahead for a new 230 meter tall luxury residential building in Benidorm. And I'm like, who is buying luxury property in Benidorm though? But then apparently, I've never been, and I really would like to go just to see it's like the spirit of the Brit abroad embodied in a location.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
You fly into Alicante, it's the Costa Blanca, it's a very beautiful part of the world, and you drive up through a place called Villajoyosa, which is the home of Spanish chocolate, the hometown, the ground zero of chocolate con churros. Everyone's had that, right? Yeah? And then there's I think there's a place, the donuts that you stick in. And then you get to Benidorm, and I mean, the amazing thing about it is the beach. It's a serious beach.
Yeah.
And
it's full of Brits abroad.
Full of Brits and British breakfast.
You can get a pint for about 80p there, I've heard. Yeah. You can get a really cheap pint there. I'm surprised that people go there when there's so many skyscrapers, because surely that gets in the way of all the unrelenting sunshine.
Yes, but another interesting thing about it is that they say that it maximizes the space on the ground, and they actually have very strict planning permission, like planning restrictions. So like only 65% of the city has to be public land and open to the public, and then there's only 10% of the land which can be built on still. So that also obviously encourages height. Who knew?
Great.
Yimby's in Benidorm.
Neither of you have been.
I'm yet to go.
Yeah.
And how high is it on your list? Is it like
80p pints sounds good.
Depends. I mean, it would be nice to go there for, if anyone wanted to commission me to go out there and see what's going on. But I have some friends that went out to see. There's a woman called Sticky Vicky who does all sorts of things there.
and her daughter?
What does she do?
I don't think we should.
No.
I don't really want to talk about it with you.
No.
Is it the kind of thing which would go over at the Fringe?
It's this, absolutely, Arts Council would fund it. If it was on a certain theatre,
It's about putting objects in.
Okay, got you. Right.
Removing them as well for mass approval.
Yeah. Barney, on a,
The French bond market.
French bond market.
Yeah, I was intrigued by the story. I saw actually
If you can actually dig it out
Yeah,
of
it's
the
in
pile of papers.
FT. Is it somewhere there?
Yep.
Classic business. But the French Prime Minister, who I actually have a hard time pronouncing his name, Bayrou, very good, recently said, and it's here somewhere, he called out Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, saying, unfortunately, people are leaving France now because there's this kind of tax nomadism that means that taxpayers are going to settle abroad. And I just think this is really interesting from the point of view of there's this sort of fight going on between different countries for this tax base, which is the ultra wealthy. And obviously, in France is having a big kind of showdown about its budget at the moment. I think on Monday there's going to be a no confidence vote in the Prime Minister to see whether he can get his budget through. It's like 44 billion worth of cuts, something like that. But it's just intriguing to me that even in the UK, we're having this fight about kind of non-dom exodus and how much should we be keeping this cohort of people so that we can tax them and make sure that ends up back in the budget. And it's very intriguing to me that we're not the only ones that are facing this battle between kind of, on the one hand, it's really anathema to raise any broad taxes, but at the same time, there's this very, very mobile group of wealthy citizens moving around the world that all of these people are all these politicians are clamoring to kind of get hold of. And I don't know where, I think Rachel Reeves should probably be watching very closely what's happening in France at the moment, because this is going down to the wire. You know, it's possible that an IMF bailout is not that surprising, and we've got this.
Not that unlikely for
Not
France.
that unlikely. You know, if that does actually happen, it could happen. And I think, you know, there's a really, you see it in the UK's bond market today. Basically, the cost of holding UK debt has reached a kind of level not seen since 1998, and you know, this isn't just us. It's happening around the world, and it's like, where are we going to get the money to fund our public services and all?
So we've had a lot of chat about this in editorial meetings here. Are the non-doms really going?
No.
Right. And you say no. You say it's a
I'd say
canard.
there's very little. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's very little evidence for it. About the same number like left as came this year and last year. Like it's not. It is an interesting story though, because it's one of those things where like everyone wants to keep them because they want to tax them, but if they tax them too much then they'll leave. So it's like this real balancing act, and then the question is like whether or not it's even worth the sort of worry in the first place, and a lot of this might be misplaced, you know.
But are there any numbers in this story that we can actually, as James Harding would say, drop on our foot about the
There's not really.
Go on.
No.
So, I mean, so there was this study that was kind of rolled out again and again by a company called Henley Tax Partners.
Yeah.
And they, you know, it was quoted in the Times saying, you know, a millionaire a minute is leaving the UK or something like this.
Which is insane.
And actually, if you look at the reality of this, this is a company that's based in South Africa that's collected a load of data from sort of slightly, you know, wealth and tax advisors who have you know, it's in their interests to say that yes, lots of people are leaving the UK, so people use our services, and you know that was trotted out again and again. The reality is we won't know how many people are leaving the UK until HMRC data comes out and tells us whether that is the case or not. And you know, obviously this is all very important for Rachel Reeves coming up, because she's got to decide, you know, what tax am I going to raise in this budget? And I think she will raise taxes. And will it be on the ultra wealthy? Will it be on something else?
And just back to France, is there any consensus on the value in terms of tax revenue to the French treasury of the rich?
Did they say 44 billion euros?
That's the whole.
That's what they've got to
That's the whole
make in
budget.
terms of cuts. But I don't know how much the ultra wealth. I assume there's a ultra wealthy contingent in France.
Or where they're going? I mean, if you're very rich in France, it is a simpler matter of just going straight to Monaco, or what do
Just
they
go
do?
straight to Kensington and
Switzerland.
Bayswater.
Go.
Dubai is obviously seen as the hotspot. I do a lot of work there. Getting any decent data is kind of impossible. But anecdotally, you have seen property prices there really increase because people have started to move offshore, and I come across just as many French people as I do, you know, British people, expats over there. Whereas if you look at somewhere like Italy and Portugal, they did big campaigns to kind of entice wealth during kind of pre-pandemic and actually during pandemic, and you got a lot of kind of tax cuts. Like I used to work in Italy and I didn't have to pay proper taxes at all because I was seen as like foreign talent. So they have got, within Europe, it's not really an equal equation. Like we're probably a lot more like France, like trying to tax at a certain level. Whereas some nations like Portugal, they've really tried to, I think what people are doing to the middle classes is then kind of reflected at the ultra wealthy end as well. But yeah, you can't get reliable statistics from Dubai.
Tell us more about your foreign talent visa in Italy. Does that still exist?
Yeah, I don't really think so. I think it's very strange. Like I also kind of was lucky because I worked for an international organisation, and even though I can have Irish citizenship and all the rest through my heritage, I didn't have my passport in time. But if I had been Irish, I would have had to contribute more taxes, I think, to do with the pension schemes.
Right.
So, but then equally, I had to pay a much higher rate of student loan in the UK for leaving.
I'm sorry, the tax deal, if just supposing I were worth a lot and I moved to Dubai, do I pay zero income tax?
It's not quite zero anymore. Like you pay, there's different corporation taxes and then there's different fees, and a lot of the cost of living there has gone up massively. But yeah, essentially it's near enough zero income tax.
Unfortunately, your wife is American, so you'd still have to pay lots of taxes no matter where you live.
I'm very fortunate that my wife is American. I'm very fortunate that my wife is my wife.
There was an article in the Times. I think it was either the Times or Sunday Times at some point over the last few days about how Dubai is becoming actually really difficult to live in, which, I mean, I'm a lesbian, so I think from the off, I'd find it pretty tricky.
Have you ever been?
I'm also ginger as well. I've only flown through.
How is that a problem?
I've only flown through and it was boiling, and I spent a lot of money on one. Yeah, no, the sun.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the sunshine affects me. But yeah, basically, people can't find places to live in Dubai and stuff. I mean, look, if I wanted to get a good, I haven't found it in here. If I wanted to get a really good gauge of how many ultra wealthy people there are in the UK, I would ask people who make and tile like luxury pools, like private pools, and ask them, have they still got business coming in at the moment? Because I think those are the ones who are going in to these massive mansions and digging deep and deep. And then, you know, that story a few years ago about the JCBs being dug so deep that they couldn't actually get a crane in these lovely kind of Georgian terraces to pull the
digger out.
JCB out. So they would just dig further and then pour concrete on it. And there's all these like dead JCBs.
Just left underground in Notting Hill.
Belgravia, yeah. Possibly Belgravia more than Notting Hill, but yeah, maybe probably Notting Hill as well. I think that would be a good way of... There's plenty of different ways of gauging, but I think what's so interesting about the ultra wealthy isn't like this clamour for them because we want their taxes, but we also want them to spend in the UK as well, and because that keeps it keeps the money here, it keeps things rolling around here, and it means that there's all these different industries that pop up around them. There's a place at the Berkeley Hotel where you can get it looks like a strawberry, but it's actually it's a pastry and it's delicious and it's about £16 and people will pay that. I paid that just for a treat one day, just to see how the other half live, and also all the supercars as well. And I think there was a story recently about how the supercars are going to be, I think Westminster Council and I think Kensington and Chelsea are trying to crack down on the kind of the loutish behaviour of the cars that are about 1.5 foot tall guys lying down in them and just zooming around with gusto. But I think those are really nice ways of working things out. You know how they work out inflation by what's in the shopping basket, and they change what's in the shopping basket.
But you know how they figure out that what each price of the shopping basket is. They go around to stores. We've talked about this before in the news meeting. If anyone's a listener, they go around to stores and people write down how much things cost in individual stores across the country.
It's properly done research, but then the really quantitative kind of loosey-goosey approach is, well, what's in the shopping basket? And I think by taking out certain things and putting kind of trendier things in, it suggests just a different pattern of consumer habit, right? But I think there could also be a similar loosey-goosey way of finding out how many ultra-wealthy people are in the UK right now.
While we're on about the very rich, let's talk briefly about wealth taxes, even if it's not in the papers. And in fact, Barney, you plonked a piece, this is a sneak preview, assuming it makes the paper, you plonked a piece on my desk today, which was speculative by Tim Lunig, right?
Yes.
And don't tell everybody, so this can remain a sort of a semi...
raising property
exclusive property, but he was floating, and people do read him, an idea for a wealth tax that was an annual do you remember the numbers?
No, frankly.
Okay, it was 0.05% of the market value of your up to $1 million, and 0.08% of the market value of your property above that, but everybody gets the first £500,000 worth of their property. Sophie, what's your next story?
My next story, I'm quite interested and just quite I'm just depressed by the Serena Williams being the face of a GLP-1 imitator that her husband's also invested in. It just it brings up so much, and obviously I'm here at the Observer and I want to flatter you all, but it's been an incredible. There was loads and loads of coverage there was a whole special all about the rise of GLP-1 imitators, and there's a brilliant piece by Susie Orbach there about you know, really having to like up her tools again and make the case for this being a problem, really. And it's a whole great op-ed there that she's written, and I did not circle the most pertinent points, but essentially, I think
I'm looking at the wrong bit of the damn page.
well, yeah, we've got Serena Williams there promoting this product, and it's not just her coming out and saying I use this product to lose the baby weight, and you know that she couldn't shift this weight and that was a problem. It brings up a lot, and I think that as this, there's also been other stories about the price being lifted up and also people buying counterfeit versions of it online. And I think a lot of progress has been made over the last few years when it comes to body positivity and understanding that our bodies are more than just things to be looked at. And for Serena Williams, who has done so many incredible things with her body, to now be the face of minimizing that body is really, really tricky. She can make her own personal decisions, of course. However, she is profiting off of this, as is her husband. You kind of think, you already own Reddit, you've already, like, do you need that much more money? But maybe they do. And the problem is I think with a lot of health messaging, it just goes over the heads of the people who need to hear it. And it goes, because there are people who are very, very unwell and have all sorts of comorbidities because they are morbidly obese. These people are not getting the messaging about GLP-1 imitators or replicators or whatever the jab, essentially. It's a lot of worried well. And I'd say they're worried unwell because there's a lot of women that I know of personally and just through looking at some of the Facebook groups about this who are not by any stretch of the imagination overweight, whatever that might mean, who are on this and they're going to stay on this and they're going to be hooked to it. And we don't necessarily know the long-term effects of people who are of a normal weight taking this. We don't know. Right. Or anyway, oh right, yeah. And I think that it puts a lot of pressure as well on women who are supposedly overweight to, well, why aren't you doing this wonderfully transformative thing? It really puts a lot of pressure on them to then do this. And I'm really proud to know a lot of people who are exploring it all with a lot of care. But I also think that there just needs to be a lot better regulation, really, when it comes to brand new stuff like this. Regulation around these sorts of adverts, regulation about, declaring your interests. I'm sure she did declare her interest, but I just think we got to regulate this thing until it's really clear that it's only getting to the people who actually need it.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna hand the mic to Katie in a second because I know she has views. But here's how Susie Orbach, author of "Fat is a Feminist Issue," summarised her take on it in Sunday's Observer: the 50-year struggle for body diversity to resist the endless thin aesthetic which presses in on all of us, and especially on girls and women, and to accept their appetites and their body of whatever shape, size, height and hue is thus eviscerated in one fell swoop. So that was Susie Orbach. I've been struck, as we've reported on this for 2 weeks, and that'll continue next week, by a not an alternative view, but a sort of companion view realization, which is that for everybody, for most people who take GLP-1s, or for many people who take them, it can be transformative. And there seems to be a difference between the story of the herd, if you'll allow, and the story of the individual. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to you. Because you got quite cross about this, didn't you?
That doesn't sound like me, Giles. I think last week, I have lots of views on this, but we only have an hour. I think last week Jess Hayden had a really good piece in the newspaper. Everyone should go check it out. Where she talked about how the sort of Serena Williams angle on this shows that like the entire Wegovy, Mounjaro, GLP-1 is going to transform everything all at once narrative has always been about thinness and not health. And I think that's a really prescient point. There isn't a lot of data on what, because these drugs, the sort of dose that you need to take the drugs for diabetes and diabetes care and maintenance is like half the dose that you need to take for weight loss. So we don't have a lot of good data on what happens to your body in the long term if you are taking these for 30 years or something. And when we know that once you go off of them, the weight comes back. And there's also a lot of research that shows that health is actually impacted at much higher weights than people think it is. If anybody wants something to watch that is both very interesting and also really devastating, there's a new documentary about The Biggest Loser on Netflix, which just like shows how sort of horrible and predatory and devastating for some of the people that were on that show was. And I think, I would never judge anybody who's like a sort of self-identifying fat person for taking one of these drugs, because society treats you so terribly, the more sort of overweight you are, that I would never sort of claim to tell them what or what not to do with their bodies, because people do that already. But I don't think that the current discourse is very helpful. And I think there's a lot of really sort of completely uncritical coverage of these drugs and the companies, and I think we should all do better.
Okay. Isn't it the case, though, per our reporting, again, James Tapper had a more sort of discursive piece, that at these lower doses for diabetes, they have in fact been prescribing them since 2007?
Yeah, no, so longer, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there must be
at that dose, they're treating a specific condition. They're right. Not treating a condition.
Okay. Did you want to add something on this?
No, I don't know. Yeah. I just that. Just that. There's no way of telling exactly what it does to bodies of people who don't have diabetes. There's no way of telling, especially as well because people are taking it in all sorts of different ways. People are microdosing it. People are there's like a secret jab at the end where if you twist it again, you get another jab out of it, and you can extend the use of it. And especially with prices going up, I think there's a real stress about how people can get it to last and find workarounds, because the more expensive it gets, the more prohibitive it gets. But people who are already taking it are so transformed by it that for that reason and society's pressures, they are desperate to keep it going for as long as possible, and will try all sorts of things, and it gets dangerous.
Body positivity is it's not healthy to be fat. That's what the medical industry tells us.
That's not true. The research there's a lot of research that tells us that the sort of BMI at which you have adverse health effects is actually a lot higher. We use weight as a sort of proxy for heart health and cardiovascular health primarily, and we can actually just test people's blood pressure and cardiovascular health instead of using weight as a proxy for that. Like, there's a lot of really good research on how weight does not affect people's bodies in the same way. At the sort of older you get as well, having extra body weight, actually studies show that extra body weight prevents you from breaking bones and twisting muscles and stuff like that, which are big causes of death for people in their 80s and 90s.
There's a reason why. Is it, I think, a third? I'm pretty sure that a third, if I'm getting that wrong, then I'm underestimating it, but a third of women over 80 will break their hip. And if they had a bit more cushion there, it wouldn't be so awful.
But
yeah.
Let's hear a little bit more. What were you saying?
Well, that's true. It's true that you should it's healthy to carry a little bit more weight when you're older. That's true, but a little bit more weight, not be obese and really overweight. And the body positivity came from the feminist movement in the 70s. The problem with it is it kind of flies in the face of medicine, what medicine tells us.
I have to respectfully disagree. But
I think also how body positivity extends to like childbirth, and I think what's especially damaging, what she pointed out, is that she was talking about like bounce back body, and language around that is just so toxic. And I think, you know, there is an argument that body positivity in some of its foibles potentially went too far to push a specific image, but I think people really grab onto that and don't understand the realities of the obesogenic environment we've built in developed economies. But some of that is also really linked with difficult issues around like women's liberation and movement into the labour market and people not sitting at home and, you know, ultra processed food. You can kind of also look at how there's more gender equality in those marketplaces, but at the end of the day, women are just, you know, and body positivity affects men just as much as women, and I think that this Biggest Noobs, a documentary, did a lot around that, but it is just something where we're vilified for the way we look on a day-to-day basis. I think a lot of people struggle to understand.
yeah, I do love, and Giles, I know you hate when I am mean to men, but I do love how like every new sort of like wellness thing, or like there are these moments in time in culture where like men realize how terrible society is to women about their bodies again, and this is one of them. And it's I'm not gonna call it fun to watch, but.
Before we move on, is there anybody who's read anything that really hit it out of the park on this issue since Serena went public with being a Manjaro taker? Yeah.
It's, I suppose it's a silver lining, if you will, or maybe one good aspect, I suppose, that you could take from it, because I'm aligned with what you're sharing up there. But I'm not pretending this is my own opinion, I listened to it on a podcast, but they were saying, because it's Serena Williams, and she's saying that, you know, even she takes or uses the jab, there's this narrative that if you're overweight, that you're overweight because you're lazy, and in a way it's showing that that's not the reason why people are overweight. There are many reasons, because you can't, you know, pretend that Serena is a lazy person. She's not being that way at all. So I suppose if we wanted to see one good part of it, one silver lining, I guess.
Do you remember what the podcast was?
It's
Yeah.
an Australian podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you guess why? It's called Big Small Talk by Cheek Media.
Okay. Big Small Talk. By what media?
Cheek Media.
Cheek Media. Okay. Katie, before I run out of time, what else has attracted your attention?
Sorry, I just want to know a quick question
Yeah.
about Serena. Like, is this something that she just started taking this last week, or had the world noticed that Serena Williams was losing a lot of weight and looked very different? Because if she hasn't or didn't...
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was. I think she's been taking it for a while, and it was a bit.
Have we all noticed a big difference in her body?
I think she hasn't been in the public eye as much because she retired in the last year, I think, maybe. I don't know, it does seem like her husband is part of this company, and she's like, oh, I'm taking it. Like, they have a huge marketing asset on their hands, and I mean...
She did play last week or 2 weeks ago in America tournament tennis, but she lost in the first game.
Well, obviously it's not helping her athletic performance then.
Yeah, it wasn't like she released the information to, like, you know, as a rebuttal to all of the speculation. And actually, the moment she was kind of not playing so much, I think there was this feeling that she wasn't being observed and criticised and poured over as much as normal. But yeah, it wasn't like I'm defiantly calling out all these people that have been worried about me.
No, I've always wondered when
yeah.
suddenly it's got publicity in photographs, people are like, wow, she looks amazing.
I don't think, I've not actually heard anyone speculate or read anyone on the Instagram comments actually speculating as to what she looks like. It's more about this is the decision she's made. Yeah. It's almost like all of the it's one of the first times I've seen people not speculate about how she looks because they're kind of so interested in this decision she's made.
She has said, but this is marketing materials. Like, this is PR. And we should all call it out for that as journalists. But I think she has said that she's been sort of, like, she's been getting a lot of comments over the course of her career, especially since she had her daughter, about that kind of extra sort of weight that she's had on her body, and that this has kind of made a lot of that stop. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's PR or marketing or whatever. I mean, obviously she's faced a torrent of abuse about the way that she looks her entire sort of life almost at this point. But
what else is on your mind?
I mean, constantly the sort of descent into authoritarianism that we're watching live on television from an ocean away, I would say.
Anything particular? Anything that someone's written that grabbed you?
I mean, I would say that the things that are being written are grabbing me less than the things that are being done.
There is.
Watching a lot.
Since we're reviewing the papers, Katie, there is, I can recommend a really good op-ed in the New York Times. I'm sorry, we can't point to it, by David Edsall on precisely this subject. I'm going to hand this back to you, but I think it's really difficult to cut through with this subject now because everyone's been saying it about so many things for so long, by which I mean, I guess, 8 months now. Short of keeping a tally and listing all the ways in which Trumpism is transgressing, it's really hard. But that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot like climate change at this point. And I mean, Trumpism around the first time around was like this, but it's almost, it's, I don't know, it's weird watching it from over here. Because it's less immediate, and we can kind of forget about it for a week. Like we can kind of like not really cover it much for a week. And I think a lot of the newspapers over here do kind of not cover it for a week. Like there was a story on Saturday or Sunday about the Trump administration trying to deport 600 children from Guatemala without sort of in the middle of the night. Over the weekend. It was a long holiday weekend in the States, so yesterday was a day off. And there was a story about the Trump administration trying to deport 600 children back to Guatemala. They said publicly that the children said they were all fine with going back to Guatemala, and of course then it comes out in court an hour later that all of the children who were talked to said that they were scared of going back to Guatemala. They were literally sitting on the tarmac in planes while lawyers were trying to stop the administration, which they succeeded in doing, and also succeeded in putting them back in the hands of whoever was sort of watching them, looking after them in the U.S. beforehand. But it's just story after story after story of that, and it's one of those things where you descend into authoritarianism slowly and then all at once, and it kind of seems like that's what's happening right now.
Just on the level of like desensitization, it was amazing that over the weekend there was just people pouring in saying, where is Trump, where is Trump, where is Trump? You know, this thing about him, you know, actually just playing a game of golf. And
he does look bad though, also. Like
yeah,
he does look,
yeah.
he really does look bad. And they are clearly, I don't know, like, I mean, the whole Biden's age thing, and now, you know, no peeps about Trump's age. Why we're not talking about Trump's age? I mean, I realize it's because he's doing like objectively terrible things that we're talking about more, but he looks bad. He looks really bad, and it does look like they're trying to kind of shield him from the camera.
Isn't he on Ozempic?
I mean, probably, but he also has had these big bruises on his hands. He's lost a lot of weight. He looks quite low energy. They're kind of putting out pictures of him, and they're obviously using like telephoto lenses to get the pictures, because they're not letting anybody near the Oval or whatever when he's getting in the car. I quite like this
Elton John Kiki D thing that we're doing here. But isn't it the case that he is dramatically more visible and available than Biden and articulate? Well, if you don't have to like what he says, the point is he says stuff.
He says stuff, but it's not articulate. I mean, it's absolutely, I mean, it's always been that way, but I think it's getting a lot worse. If people who watch lots of Trump video, it is, which I have, he is less and less coherent in terms of sometimes he's more coherent than other times, but it's more all over the place. And I mean, you know, yeah, they did have a 3-hour long cabinet meeting the other day, but it was a bunch of other people, you know, saying that he's the greatest thing since sliced bread or whatever.
Yeah, that is nauseating, but I'm going to disagree here. Just the comparisons with his predecessor, I think, are really striking. The way he can think and talk on his feet. And I'm going to drop a clanger that I've dropped before. He seems to be much better at stringing sentences together now. If you look at the verbatim interview transcripts that he's done with the BBC and what the BBC have done with him and the Atlantic, than he was when I interviewed him in 2016, when he was all over the shop. Anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a matter of opinion. He just goes on absolute rants that have nothing to do with any, but
We're not going to resolve this here.
Just briefly while we're on it, do you want to talk about the authoritarians on the other side of the world, briefly?
Yes, but also, before we run out of time, I want to talk about what you want to talk about, what we've missed. I wanted to very briefly talk about the North Sea as well. But if there are... Yes?
Green Party.
The Green Party. He's changed his name to... What's his name again?
Zach Polansky.
Yes. I didn't realise he changed his name. Well, what do you make of that?
And what did he say about...
Me personally?
Yeah.
I'm not a member of the Green Party. I'm not a member of any party.
Sorry, can you tell us what happens? I missed it.
Zach Polansky won the leadership of the Green Party. Go ahead. By a landslide. His rivals was a joint sort of co-leader bid. And one of the interesting things about this is that he's not an MP.
Correct. He's a member of the London Assembly.
Yeah. And just from what I read about it briefly...
From where?
He's in, where is he from originally?
Oh, the London Assembly. Are they...
Oh, I don't know.
Just wondering if you have any...
But he lived in Hackney.
I'm going to guess he's East London based as well, just on the basis of who's going to vote an assembly member, just as a gauge. It presents a really interesting predicament for your party, which I think that's, as it's Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana's party, which already is getting an ideological split because you've got some of the independent MPs that have kind of been voted in on their pro-Gaza stance are from conservative religious Muslim backgrounds, and they do not agree with other parts of the party on trans rights, which is obviously or abortion, yes, or I imagine plenty of other things that are, socially progressive things. I imagine if it comes down to same-sex marriage, or it's a very interesting ideological split that they're getting there, and I do wonder whether someone like Zach Polansky, who's a very charming speaker, very engaging. I wonder whether he's going to have a bit more cut through than your party is, even though there's a lack of recognition. He's got a lot of energy, and I think he's able to say quite bold things in quite careful ways, whereas I think quite recently we had Zara Sultana say just quite clearly that David Lammy should be in The Hague, which to me, I don't know how that actually helps people, even tangentially.
Jeremy Corbyn tweeted an effusively congratulatory tweet to Zach today.
Because he's just a sweet guy. He's just being a kind and affable guy, and he's not necessarily ready to play politics at his age, yeah.
And it's clear, isn't it, that if you add up in percentage terms those considering defecting from Labour to the Greens and to your party, for want of a better word, that is a bigger number than those considering defecting from Labour to Reform. So anyway,
did they abandon the Left Party? Am I behind the times on this?
I don't know.
Was that not a real thing? Okay.
They might have left the Left Party. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Barney.
Just to add briefly, I was really fascinated by, he's kind of one of the only politicians I've seen convincingly on TikTok kind of put out a store. I mean, and the only other people who are doing it are like Robert Jendrick and, Farage. And I think the Labour Party is asleep at the wheel in terms of where...
Look at the Mandami in New York. That's his whole campaign.
It's just TikTok. And I think that he's one of the few politicians that seems to be doing it on the left.
Have no fear, though, Barney, because me and Giles argued about this a little bit before coming on.
Come on, then.
Have no fear, though, because in Keir Starmer's cabinet shake-up, he's hiring noted Tony Blair advisor Tim Allen as his media operations, to overhaul his media operations. And, yeah.
That'll do it.
Anyone else for anything else?
No, just on this note of I believe it was the ITV News today in the lunchtime, they present the Green Party, the people as an ex-actor and an ex-hypnotherapist.
Hypnotherapist, yeah.
Maybe that's the Putin TikTok.
And possibly performance as preparation for politics. You think of Volodymyr Zelensky. Reagan. Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
I think more importantly, he's got really popular policies. I think that's actually more important.
Yeah, and he can.
Has to say about his career of hypnotherapy and whatnot.
He can communicate them very clearly as well. And I think, yeah, you're completely right. He's on TikTok. He's where people's eyeballs are. And I mean, I wanted to talk a bit about the ubiquity of flags, which I'm sure, the entire cabinet meeting today was draped in St George's crosses and Union Jacks, and painted over roundabouts. And there's been so much from Labour over the last couple of days about how much they all love flags and how flags are all fine. And that whole movement, if you've been online, you can see where it's come from. You can see that the far right are doing very well there. And I wouldn't say it's just my algorithm, because I try and look at all sorts on there just to shake it up a bit. But there is a strong, hugely strong nationalist right-wing movement on there, and it's not being countered by left-wing voices enough, whether they be within the Labour Party or other left parties. But Zach Polanski is doing a good job of getting out there, which is really good.
What is he saying about flags? Because Labour's response on the flags has shown, in a sense, how hard it is to respond to flags everywhere if you're trying to be a centre-left government. I mean, Starmer and Yvette Cooper talking about having flags at home. I mean, it's clearly, they might have one in a drawer somewhere, but I mean, it's kind of nonsense, and it's clearly nonsense, and they've obviously decided, even if we're going to sound stupid, we're going to say this stuff.
They sleep under a flag.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what Zach Polanski said about the flags at the moment. I do just think there is a serious comms problem with the government, and just being able to say, it's just so obvious that you can just say, from my own centre-left point of view, which is that, yeah, great if you want to have flags up, great if you're putting them up to try and sow the seeds of division, then don't, which is pretty much exactly what Keir Starmer said, but he took too long to say it, in that he took way too many days to say it, and then he said it in a very unclippable line. He needed to say something short, sharp, punchy that can go straight to the top of news bulletins, but instead it was delivered at length. And also, a lot of people are only managing to get them at half-mast, which is quite sinister, on top of the xenophobia that they can project.
Just before I hand this back to Katie, and we'll have to wrap up, I think you may find some more... George, is there still wine in the tubs? Yeah, there's stuff over there.
Our partner...
You said it's a comms problem, but isn't it much deeper than that? In the United States, it is entirely normal, not just on July the 4th, but throughout the year, to fly as Stars and Stripes. It's not threatening. It's not in the same way. Not in the same way as it's threatening.
No, but it's partisan.
If you see a Union Jack or a George Cross on a flatbed truck full of scaffolding, bearing down on you, as I did the other day, it's like I'm in Agincourt and I want to be on the other side. But that, to me, that speaks to something much deeper than a comms problem. Barney.
I mean, I think it's really complicated, but it feels to me as if we've slightly reached a bit of a tipping point. Like my colleague Phoebe was telling me today that her sister is like watching the women's rugby and is like really loving it and wants to wear the England shirt and all this stuff. But she doesn't want to wear the England shirt now. She sort of thinks it's got these associations, it's got this kind of slightly tricky kind of feeling that she has about it. And, I just think we've not really got to grips with English nationalism for years in this country. And the fact that it's visual and in our faces now, we're going to have to kind of have a debate about it. We're going to have to debate about what it means.
Can I add? Well, I agree. I think this is maybe surprisingly... because I like to be really anti-British, everything. But I think this is really, I think it's actually quite, it's complicated because if you think about Scotland, like the Scottish flag in Scotland doesn't have the same connotations, surely.
Sometimes.
Since the referendum.
If I see a house flying a Scottish flag, I think, oh, listen.
But I mean, I think that's fair. But I think do you mean since the Brexit referendum or the independence referendum? Yeah. So I think that we do have this problem in the States, and it's that the sort of right of the political spectrum has sort of I don't want to say co-opted, but has kind of taken the kind of Stars and Stripes American flag patriotism as a right-wing thing. And the left and the Democrats have yet to really counter that and say, like, no, we're not anti-American. Like, we love, one of the sort of greatest things you can do for a country that you love is to call it out when it's not doing what it should be doing. And like, that is a form of love and patriotism. And I think that is kind of what Starmer tried to do. And I think up until this point, when they were in opposition, Labour had a pretty, that was sort of the line on, British, to be British has changed over the years, and it's become this we become multicultural Britain and global Britain, and the Union Jack can stand for something other than colonialism and whiteness or whatever, and they've just gone straight back on that. Like they haven't held the line in any way on that. Starmer comes out and is doing some sort of press conference in front of a bunch of St. George's flags, and they're not inherently, anything, right? Like they are the thing that they are the meaning that we put on them. But you made a really good connection in my brain earlier, because I was thinking about, you have to know what people do online to understand this though, because having an English flag, like having a St. George's cross in your sort of profile on Twitter specifically over the last 10 years has meant a very specific thing. And I think Tommy Robinson himself had an English flag in his Twitter profile, and that had a very specific connotation of a specific part of the online right. And if the government doesn't know that, and they don't have anybody that knows that or understands that, there's just a lot of things happening, and it's complicated.
I think also the beginnings, the beginnings of this kind of let's raise the colour. It has come from the far right, and I think that being able to trace it back to that and knowing that it's come from that is really important. And when it comes to, what I was going to say about the old flag is that I think in some ways, if I were Yvette Cooper sitting in my lovely dining room in Stoke Newington, surrounded by sponge cakes made by Ed Balls and drapes of Union Jack bunting around me, I would be really happy that we haven't had the same violent protest, bless you, that this year, the violent anti-migrant protests to the same degree that happened last year. And if people are spending their time, their money, their energy, their resources, shimmying up lampposts to put, St. George's flags on them, then that is keeping them from doing other stuff. And I do think that from a security point of view, it seems like a lot calmer a thing to do. However, if you're an immigrant, if you are a person of colour, if you're someone who doesn't necessarily feel welcomed by the England flag, it reminds you of football hooligans, or a nasty van that's driven cut you up on the road or shouted expletives at you. Of course, you're going to feel very, very differently.
Now that's really useful context actually for what I was baffled by, that Yvette Cooper was saying, but it makes sense now. Look, we're over time. I'm conscious that we haven't really harvested a whole heap of stories that you might have been itching to tell us about, but out of respect for those of you who have other places to go, we're going to wrap it up at this point. As I say, there are some more drinks there. I have heard for the first time this evening the word obesogenic. I'm embarrassed that I hadn't heard it before. I'm sure it's a very important part of the debate. That podcast, for those of you who weren't able to write it down, was Big Small Talk. I was fascinated by the way we all agreed that this Manjaro story started as PR, and I think we're all agreed that it morphed into a real story. So some PR person earned their salary. And finally, I think I learned to my satisfaction that those ponies got eaten. So thanks for that. Thank you all very much for coming.